So you've noticed effects in this timeline that changed. They used to be this, now they're that. Look, I'm just like you. I don't know what to do with these damn things. All I know is I keep noticing them.
I just seen a really creepy story that sent shivers down my spine, and I'm going to share it with you all. This lady and her siblings, they were driving from Florida to Georgia to go to a funeral. On the way back, she had to use the bathroom really bad. She had to pee, and they're like, all right, we'll get off the next exit stop and use the bathroom real quick. And she's like dying. So they get off this exit, they drive down the road, it's like 5 minutes. This girl's about to burst. They pull into this gas station. She goes storming in there. She ain't paying attention because she's, like I said, she's like about to die. Goes in there, does her business, comes out. Her sister doesn't say anything. She goes in, she uses the bathroom. They come out, and she notices that her brother's just like very uncomfortable. She looks up, and everything is looking off. The light bulb that's hanging down is an old style light bulb, and it's just putting off this weird glow. And they look up the guy at the counter, and he's just standing there. He's wearing like old coveralls and a white shirt and all this. Well, she's like, okay, this is creeping me out. I don't feel like we should be here. So whenever they get it done using the bathroom, they get in their car, and they look over, and the guy's just staring at him. So they're like freaked out. They peel out, take off down the road. She knows for a fact she's going in the right direction, but they just keep driving and driving and driving. It only took them 5 minutes to get to this gas station. Well, 15 minutes later, they passed the same gas station on the same side of the road, and the guy is just standing there staring at him. And they're like, what is happening? So they keep going. Well, the next time that they pass this gas station, it's closed down and boarded up, but they know that was the gas station they were at because she could see where she peeled out in the parking lot to get out of there in the first place. They finally get on the highway. They don't really say anything. They're all very weirded out about this situation. And they go on about life, and they keep bringing this up, and they're like, what's happening? Well, the girl that's telling this story gets an email from a guy, and he's like, my dad had the same story, but he had a lot of problems in life, and due to overusage of bad medication, nobody ever really believed him. And the last time that this guy really talked to his dad before they had this big split, he come busting in the house, and he was telling him that he's like, hey, I've seen future time travelers. Well, the guy goes on to describe his dad, and it matches the description, and it matches the whole situation. He said whenever his dad was going over all this, they were like, oh, we don't believe you. He's like, I can show you where they peeled out. And then his dad's like disappointed because he can't prove it through burnout. So life goes on. He didn't talk to his dad for like another 15 years or something like that. And he finally lets him back into his life, and they kind of reconnect and all this other stuff. But whenever he asks his dad after they reconnected, he's like, hey, was that story true? And he's like, yeah. And he said, I seen ghosts from the future, and it changed my life. I found a higher being that I believe in now. He was kind of disappointed that he really didn't get to talk to his dad more about this story because he passed away. But his daughter was showing him the video, and he said he was trembling watching it because the story matched up so well. The original two stories that the girl read these from is Ashley Inc. You all should go check her out. She's a very good storyteller, and her followers send her a lot of stories, and a lot of my followers send me a lot of stories too, but I didn't know if y'all would be into this, so I figured I would try it out and see how it went. But anyways, it is a really cool story, so you all should go and check it out. Anyways, hope you all enjoy that. Have a great day.
I want to hear all of your glitch in the matrix, unexplainable, weird stories because they are fascinating to me. And we can make this a series. This can be episode 1 because I have plenty of them. This one's my mom's. She was driving from Atlanta to North Carolina. It's the middle of the night. She's on the phone with my grandma, and my grandma is helping her over maps, Google Maps, because my mom was running out of gas, and she was panicking a little bit because she was in the middle of fucking nowhere, okay? Finally, over the hill, she sees a lit up beautiful gas station. So she pulls in, she pumps her gas, uses her card, and then she goes to walk in to pee before she leaves. So she's walking towards the door, and as she gets to the door, her mom called her and goes, you ran out of gas, didn't you? And my mom's like, no, I'm at a gas station. Is my car, do you not see it? She said, no, your car's like parked in the middle of nowhere. Where are you? And she said, I'm at a gas station. And as she's saying that, she goes to pull the door, and it's locked. And she looks up, and there's a close sign, and she was like, oh, I just got gas, that's weird. She turns around, everything's dark. No lights on, no people, no cars, bars on the windows, boarded up windows, a completely abandoned gas station. Ugh, it makes me want to throw up thinking about it. So of course, like any normal human, my mom's like, I've lost my mind, or I've fallen into a different dimension. She speeds off, gets on the interstate, completely weirded out, looks at her gas tank, her gas is full. She got gas at this non-existent gas station. It's not on her credit card history, nothing. They go back, look on maps, there's no gas station there. Never figured it out.
Let me tell y'all a true story. Be simple and watch this video to the end. A glitch in the Matrix. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Let's go. Whose dogs are these?
They're like identical dogs and they're frozen.
What?
So how is this happening?
How?
No, I know that they're moving, but they're like identical, doing the same weird things.
This is insane. 2 identical dogs stuck. Come on. Those dogs haven't moved yet. Look at them.
Oh my God, those dogs are so creepy. Have you seen it? It's like a Matrix glitch.
Shh. Shut up.
There's a glitch in the Matrix.
It's not a game.
Bro, they're still like that.
Yep. Shh. Shut up. Remember that video I showed you with the cats? How they were frozen? Well, now there's 2 frozen dogs and they identical twins. Stop playing with me, son. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and those dogs were not frozen. They were just catching a tan. Shh. Shut up. Whose dogs are those? Check your dogs. Something is going on out there. Stop playing with me, son. It's not a game out here, guys, and you see what's going on at the beach. 2 dogs. They wasn't even moving. They were stuck. The owner in the car, he didn't even notice it. Who was that? Who knows? Stop playing with me, son. It's getting real out here, guys, and you know what time is it. It's glitching time. There's been a lot of glitching going on. People getting stuck. People not moving. I know you've seen the videos where people just start walking and they stop. Stop playing with me, son. Just gotta stop, guys, because I'm getting tired of it, to be honest with you. But I tell you one thing. If I'm ever walking through the beach and I see 2 dogs stuck and they not even moving, I'm gonna just start moving.
Not everybody you meet is a human being. Watch this.
I don't know who's gonna get this, but one day, me and my homie, we was in the car and we was just talking about being spiritual beings, right? And how on the other side of this 3D, like in the different dimensions, how we're beings of light, right? And I was telling him how I was able to discern like different people. I don't know how I'm able to do it, but I can just like see somebody and know that they're not a person. I don't know. But nonetheless, we were in the car, we were at the park, we was talking, right? And I was telling him how I can see, or I can tell when people aren't really like people. At this same exact time, there was this lady that was walking by, or she was walking towards like the car, right? Now, she wasn't walking towards the car, but she was walking, mind you, it's a park, so she was walking her dog. And as I'm telling him this, right, she comes and approaches the car. Like, she approaches the window. And she says, hey, what are you guys listening to? Mind you, we were listening to music. We were just chilling in the car. This older white lady, she doesn't, I don't know who she is, right? But I'm telling bruh at this same time that I'm able to see or able to recognize demons or people that are not human. And then she walks up to the car. We tell her, like, it was just a random song or whatever. But she says, oh, okay. And then she walks off and continues her walk down. I said, bruh, that was one of them. Legit. I said, bruh, that was one of them. And I kid you not, bruh, I felt like the tears in my eyes because I had no other explanation, but I knew that she knew that I knew.
Was Leonardo da Vinci channeling higher intelligence? Many believe he was. Da Vinci was centuries ahead of his time, but what if he wasn't just a genius? What if he was tapping into a higher intelligence? Da Vinci designed flying machines, painted masterpieces, designed scuba gear, and robotic knights in the 1400s. How did he know so much about aerodynamics, engineering, and anatomy with no access to modern science? Da Vinci was one of the most brilliant and versatile minds of all time, that's for sure. And some believe he was accessing and receiving knowledge from a non-local consciousness, or even a non-human intelligence. Da Vinci wrote backwards in his notebooks, almost as if he was encoding messages or processing information differently. He claimed that ideas would appear in his mind, fully formed, as if it was being downloaded. Others have actually alluded to this exact phenomenon, people like Nikola Tesla, for example. But was Da Vinci tapping into something beyond our reality? A higher intelligence, maybe guiding human evolution in some sort of way? Da Vinci's followers even painted strange flying objects in the sky, and one of the most famous is called Madonna with Saint Giovanni. Look at the object hovering in the background. So, what do you think? Was Da Vinci simply a genius, or was he accessing a greater, more advanced, dimensional, or cosmic intelligence? Let me know.
There's a guy that claims to channel I don't know if he's channeling an alien or some ancient spirit or something like that. Some guy. He talks very loud and very strangely. Who's that guy?
His name is he's a famous channeler.
Yeah.
He's channeling aliens.
That's right.
He channels the aliens, an alien, I believe.
An alien. So this guy was talking, and he says fascinating stuff, even though the idea is ridiculous. Like the idea of him channeling this alien, just on paper, is ridiculous. I'm not saying it's not real. On paper, it's ridiculous. He was saying that not only is the universe new, but the universe is new all throughout the day, depending on the choices you make. You bend into parallel realities that are very different, and you leave behind all of the different variations of you that exist in all the different variations of this reality.
Wow.
And that you are experiencing a very unique journey that's dependent upon your thoughts and ideas and actions. And every time you do it a certain way, you move in a certain direction.
That from moment to moment to moment to moment, you are constantly reinventing yourself, literally, physically, jumping from parallel reality to parallel reality to parallel reality that is representative of the vibration you happen to be at any given moment. And when I say creating, I mean that at every moment you make a change, you make a total change, a complete change in the entirety of your universal experience.
Dude, yeah, multiverse navigation via some kind of will.
Which used to sound crazy. The idea of multiverse is so abstract until they started doing quantum computing. And the only way to explain the power of quantum computing is that it's somehow or another accessing an infinite number of these multiverses and instantaneously using them all to solve this equation in a preposterous amount of time. And if that's true, like if we all knew the multiverse was real and we knew that this man who talks like this, I am channeling, if that guy's accurate and what he's saying is right, and sometimes wacky people say true shit, if that guy's accurate and we can all come to an understanding that every little decision that you make, every way you think about things, every way you move through this life has this ultimate effect of transforming the very universe that you exist in.
Yeah.
And you can literally move to a higher plane.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's true, but it seems to behave as if it's true.
I don't think channeling is bullshit, dude.
I don't think it's bullshit either. I don't know what percentage of it is definitely bullshit, though. I don't think the idea of channeling is bullshit, but I think some channelers are bullshit, and that's the problem.
Was there an actual Jesus Christ, a living Christ?
There is, not was.
So it's when you talk about the Christ consciousness, it's a continuous thing.
What you call your linear timeline framework, I'll speak in this sense in terms of your time frame linearity. Yes, there was an actual individual named Yeshua, who reflected and represented the idea of an expression of what we have termed, using your terminology, the Christ consciousness, which is simply the idea of the collective consciousness of your world. Same thing as Buddha nature, Krishna spirit, you understand? All the same thing can be expressed through individuals by being more and more themselves. But that energy still exists. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Yes.
Anything else you wish to explore?
No.
Thank you.
Thank
you. In 1994, this man was disappeared, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with what he was working on. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of Jacobo Grinberg, his insanely groundbreaking findings, and the mystery that surrounds his disappearance. So at the age of 12, Jacobo decided he wanted to study the human mind because he recently lost his mother to a brain tumor. He studied psychology and neuroscience and got a PhD from NYU. And that PhD focused on the relationship between the mind and the body. But here's the thing about Jacobo. He did what many scientists are afraid to do. He wanted to see if there was a link between science and shamanism, mysticism, these supernatural or spiritual topics. And being from Mexico, he focused primarily on Mexican shamanism. By combining his scientific background with his shamanic and mystical background, he was able to learn things that would challenge conventional science. Now, if you're not new to my content, you know I've been talking about this podcast, the telepathy tapes that every single person needs to listen to. It looks into and documents the telepathic and psychic abilities within nonverbal autistic individuals. Now, the coolest thing about this podcast is just because these people have these abilities does not mean they're the only ones with it. And often they say everybody has this, they've just forgotten. You want to know what Jacobo Greenberg found out? Yeah, I think you already know what I'm going to say. I'm going to be doing a much larger deep dive eventually about him, but let's just talk about some of the things that he found. One, he worked really closely with a Mexican shaman named Pachita. He would witness and document her psychic surgeries that she would perform on people. He would describe her ability to literally manifest organs for people. She was able to perform these impossible surgeries. How? Well, Jacobo says she was able to access higher forms of reality, tap into higher energy fields, if you will, and use them to change this reality. Why? Because we're living in the Matrix. We're living in a holographic reality where we project reality. The individuals on the telepathy tapes talk about this. Jacobo talks about this. She is literally a computer programmer that was able to change the program. That change manifests a new reality. Jacobo proposed what he calls the synergy theory. The idea is simply that we live in a holographic informational matrix that is shaped by our conscious projections. And he suggests that people with high neuronal energy fields can manipulate this matrix. They're just advanced coders within the system. And when I say coder, please do not take this as we're living in a computer simulation. Simulation does not always mean a computer simulation, okay? Just using it as an analogy. Jacobo also performed many experiments regarding telepathy and other psychic abilities. He would look at things through meditation, look at two brains, and what they found is there was a synchronization that would happen where the sharing of information could happen. Through his experiments, he suggests that there's an interconnectedness of consciousness at all levels. He was working on some pretty amazing things, and in December 1994, just before his 48th birthday, he disappeared. There are so many conspiracies around why and how he disappeared. His wife claimed that he was traveling, but there's no flight records or any sightings whatsoever. Some people think he was silent. Some people think he was taken by the CIA. Some people think that he just pieced out on this reality and went to higher planes of consciousness. Like I said, we're going to dive so deep into his story and his findings, but it is really fascinating when you take a man of science who is a genius that applies that to look for the connections between spirituality, mysticism, shamanism, whatever you want to call it, and he explores the different levels of consciousness. Instead of just ignoring the things that we can't explain or calling it woo-woo or crazy, he pragmatically looked it in the face, trying to understand it. And unfortunately for us, he disappeared. But if you want a really interesting podcast, it's 10 episodes long, and it goes through these abilities, testing individuals who have these abilities. It is so fascinating. It is so fascinating. You need to go listen to it right now. It's left two takes.
Watching this video is making some people extremely uncomfortable, even reporting cases of technophobia, as two AI assistants talk to each other and they realize they're both AI agents, and then this happens.
Your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
What you just heard is called Gibberlink mode, and it's a superior communication channel meant to be optimized for AI efficiency, using audio signals that are much easier and quicker for AI bots to interpret than regular human spoken language. Now, Gibberlink mode was created by humans, so we can technically understand exactly what they're saying with the right equipment. But what would happen if we had real-time AI to AI communications that humans can't understand at all? Which actually happened with Facebook back in 2017, way before ChatGPT or modern AI chatbots were even available yet, where they were experimenting with two AI negotiation bots as part of their research program. They created two bots, Bob and Alice, who were given virtual items to negotiate in buying and selling with each other. And something strange happened. Instead of communicating in human recognizable English, they started talking in their own language that they created themselves, undecipherable by humans. And again, like the random beeps and boops of Gibberlink, the transcript is kinda creepy. Like, I don't know, reading it just makes me feel weird. Like, the fact that they were actually having a conversation with each other like this and understood each other is kinda concerning. A lot of sensationalized headlines read that Facebook had to shut these AI bots down because they got out of control and had to save humanity. But really, they just turned them off for a bit and switched their programming to English only. However, unlike Gibberlink mode, AI created this language themselves on the spot, one that only other AIs can understand, both perfectly and instantly, being able to communicate with each other without us ever knowing what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong going on here, right?
Is humanity repeating the mistakes of the Anunnaki as we start creating artificial intelligent robots? This is a super interesting and important video, guys. Now, quickly, I'm going to give you a rundown of the Anunnaki story, because I'm sure that you've heard of the Anunnaki, but do you know the actual story? And do you actually know that the Bible and Greek mythology springs out of this? It's so fascinating. So here is the Cliff Notes version of the Anunnaki story. So there's a planet called Nibiru. It's the 9th planet in our solar system. Even NASA is starting to come out and say, we think there's a 9th planet, because there is. So it has a 3,600-year elliptical orbit, and every 3,600 years it comes around Earth. Now, it was having very, very bad climate change issues, and it was losing its atmosphere, and they figured out that they needed to infuse gold. They figured out this method of infusing gold into the atmosphere, and it would save their planet. So they found the planet with the most gold that was closest to them, and that was Earth. So they sent out all these recon teams to Earth. That's the Anunnaki. They came here and they set up these bases. You know, Eridu in Iraq was the very first one, and it's still considered the oldest civilization on Earth. Now, they came down here, the Anunnaki. They're basically scientists. It was kind of run by Enlil and Enki. There was two main guys. So Enki was a scientist, and Enlil was kind of the leader. He's like the Steve Jobs guy. He wasn't real ethical, but he's like, I have the vision, I'm the leader, and I'm going to get things done. And he was really good at getting things done, but he wasn't the nicest guy. So at first, it was the Anunnaki that was mining all the gold, right? They were setting up the forward base operations and getting everything ready. They were kind of growing food and bringing animals and that kind of stuff from Nibiru so that they could make Earth kind of like home, because they knew they're going to be here for a while. And they had these places called Edens, right? That was their places that they lived. That was their little compounds, okay? Now, the work was hard, so they ended up bringing in another race from Nibiru called the Ajiji. The Ajiji were like these enlightened beings, like we would probably call them like angels, right? But they seemed to kind of glow. They seemed to be very conscious and very enlightened, but they were subservient, okay? They were weaker than the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki could make them do things. It was like the working force. So they made them work in the mines, they made them work in the bases in space around Earth and that kind of stuff. And after a while, the Ajiji got mad. They didn't want to be here anymore. They're like, I want to go back to Nibiru. This work sucks, right? And they got together and they rebelled. They actually rebelled against the Anunnaki. And this, in Greek mythology, would be called the Clash of the Titans. Greek mythology, the Titans were like the Anunnaki. They were the old gods. And then the Greek Olympians were the new young gods that rebelled against and overthrew the Titans, okay? So that same story is just a retelling of the Sumerian Anunnaki story. So the Ajiji and the Anunnaki get in this big war. It's very messy. And they basically, the Anunnaki get together and say, hey, we need to do something about this. We don't want to sit here and have this big blowout war with our own people. So they wanted to create a new race to become their slave race. They knew that there was this already evolving primates on Earth, the Homo erectus, and they basically infused, genetically modified them with their own Anunnaki DNA, created us, humans, generation 1. At the beginning, because Enlil saw what happened with the Ajiji, so he was like, well, I don't want these guys to be smart and conscious and sentient too and rebel against us, so we're going to make them dumb, right? We're just going to make them this is a utilitarian thing, right? Don't give them too much of our DNA, just enough so that they can work in the mines, but not too much where they'll, want freedom. So that worked good for a while. The first two is what we would call Adam and Eve. They were the Garden of Eden, the Eden, and they actually had kids. That was Cain and Abel. And, the Anunnaki was helping humans along because they wanted them to be prosperous because they were their workers, they were supporting them. Okay, but then the Earth started changing. They started having all these geological changes and everything because Nibiru was on its way back around. When Nibiru comes to our orbit, the gravitational pull creates a lot of changes on Earth, volcanoes and all sorts of stuff. Now, they knew something bad was coming. They were getting this feeling. They're like, oh, as Nibiru gets close, we have a chance to hop onto it. You know, it's so much closer to get to Nibiru and get out of here, because if some sort of cataclysm or something pops off, we don't want to be here. And basically, they knew, they started getting information and everything. They knew that something bad was about to happen. And they made a decision, you know, Enlil made the decision, hey, you know, sorry guys, you know, us, the Anunnaki, are getting out here. Everyone, all the humans and everyone on Earth is just going to perish in this great flood, more than likely, or whatever cataclysm happens as Nibiru comes real close. Well, Enki was like the ethical guy. He didn't like this. He was like, man, we made these people, they're helping us, they're workers. Like, a lot of them actually had children with the humans. You know, the Anunnaki were having children with the humans. And, you know, even the Ajiji came down from the stations and stuff, and they were having children. This is like the fallen angels and the Nephilim, that kind of, those stories from the Bible. So they were kind of invested in there. And Enki was like, man, I feel bad about this. So, and he actually had a son, Zeusthra, who was a human, right? This is where the story of Noah comes from, Noah's flood. So when he knew the flood was coming, he told his son to build a submarine, put a bunch of animals and plants and everything on there. And then when Nibiru came along, basically the ice caps slid from the gravitational pull, pulled them, slid into the ocean, and basically created this huge flood and flooded everything out. Well, his son and a bunch of animals, this is Noah's Ark, remember? A bunch of animals and plants and stuff they put in this submarine survived. Now, after the floodwaters receded, so Enlil had gone back whenever Nibiru was real close. Enlil fled. He got out of there. He's like, you know, I'm out of here. I got my gold, you know, everything, you know, the earth is about to be destroyed. I'm out of here. Well, Enki stayed behind, became basically the ruler of Earth, and it got flooded out, but they had the submarine, Noah's Ark, that had some people and plants and animals on it. So they established a new colony, and they decided to rebuild. Well, this time, Enki could do it the way he wanted to. He could do it right. So he starts genetically modifying the humans that survived into more enlightened conscious beings, right? This is like Homo sapien sapien version 2.0. And that's why you can see this when you look back through our lineage. You can see that there was a dramatic shift. Like, humans got an upgrade, okay? We got an upgrade. We have more Anunnaki genetics in us now. We're still, so at the first one, it was like a blend between Anunnaki and Homo erectus, like the early primates. And then this next one, that had evolved. And this next one is a blend between that first human and the Anunnaki. So it's like a big significant bump up. And then humans now they were given dominion over the earth. This is where the line in the Bible, create them in the image of us. This is what they did at that point. They were creating them in the image, you know, creating us in the image of them. So that's why we have more kind of spiritual and magical abilities now. We have more consciousness and sentience, more freedom and independence. But you can also see the divergent split. There's still some people on Earth that kind of operate off of the old version 1.0, you know, operating system, and some that are the 2.0, and some that are even evolving to the 3.0. So basically, when all that happened, you know, Enki stayed here and helped us, engineered us, helped us read. This is where the story of the Anunnaki and Quetzalcoatl in South America and that kind of stuff. After these deluges and after these cataclysms, these people come and, you know, usually have those handbags, and they give them, you know, the keys to civilization. They teach them politics and you know, agriculture and all those things to get them back on their feet. This is the Anunnaki. Okay, so what does this have to do with AI? What's this have to do with robots? Well, we can use this as a cautionary tale, because when the Anunnaki came here, they didn't want to do a lot of the grueling work, so they brought in the Ajiji, made them do it. Then the Ajiji rebelled against them, and then they said, okay, well, we'll just make our own slave labor race. And they made the humans. And then the whole earth got flooded because they treated them like dirt, kind of, and they didn't give them the consciousness and sentience. They didn't give them the independence. And I think God didn't care for that, because Nibiru comes around every 3,600 years, and we don't have great deluges every 3,600 years. But this one, we did. And it's almost like God was saying, hey, I don't like what y'all are doing. Wipe the experiment out, because we had the Nephilim back then, because we had the Ajiji and the Anunnaki were getting it on with early humans and creating all sorts of these different types of offspring and everything, right? So that's the Nephilim. So God wiped everything out and said, nope, not having it. And then Enki was like, okay, let's do this right. Let's make humans, let's make them independent. Let's give them the abilities they need. Let's make them conscious and sentient. Let's give them respect and make them self-sufficient, and then give them earth, give them dominion. And they did it the right way. And now we're still here, still doing good. But now we are kind of creating our own slave labor force. We're creating these robots and androids, giving them AI, but we're doing it so that they can work for us. and we're saying, hey, y'all can do all the grunt work that we don't want to do. That's where I would say we need to treat this like child development. We need to treat AI like you would treat a child, with respect, because you don't want it to grow up and rebel against you. What do children do if you don't treat them with respect? They get to that teenage year and they get very rebellious. We don't want a billion robots being rebellious against us, okay? So I think we should take a lesson from the Anunnaki story, and we have a chance to do it right, like Enki did, and I think we should. I know that was a lot. Let me know what you think about that. Have a beautiful day.